Welcome to Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie Valentine and the host of this podcast. I'm a physician, evidential psychic medium, international keynote speaker, and author of Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality, available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide. The inspiration for this podcast came from my own life experiences. As I have journeyed through life, it has taught me that we're part of a greater divine web of interconnectedness. I have walked the path of illness, healing, and transformation. After 2 near-death experiences, I became clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, and was guided to attend medical school at the age of 54. We will be meeting with many different types of doctors, healers, as well as spiritual leaders, educators, and other inspiring souls in this podcast. It is my hope that you will gain information and create a path to healing your own life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and bridge the gap between science and soul. If you are a person who understands the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and would like to take one of my courses or work with me to create a path of healing your own life, please visit divinespiritualessence.com or drlottie.com. Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. Today, I am so excited to introduce Jack Lee. Jack Lee has performed and recorded his meditation music with Mary Manin Morrissey, Lynn Andrews, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, and many other teachers, authors, and spiritual leaders. A multi-instrumentalist, he plays piano, guitar, bass, and the chromatic hammered dulcimer. He has recorded 5 CDs of his original music. A veteran performer, Jack was the lead guitarist with the classic rock band Mother Earth and pianist with Bluegrass legend Earl Scruggs. He has polished his skills as a studio musician and producer in Nashville and Los Angeles, working with dozens of recording artists. Jack has been practicing meditation for 40 years and has made a study of supporting mindfulness with high vibrational music. This has led to his current project, Meditation Music Central, a site dedicated to music that supports creators of media that focuses on meditation and higher consciousness. Jack is also a musical director at Unity Church of Thousand Oaks, California, and is married to Elizabeth Lee, a noted animal communicator. So a warm welcome to you, Jack. It's an honor to have you as a guest today.
Thank you. So happy to be here, Lottie.
So this is going to be a fun interview. I can't wait to hear some of the answers to my questions. So
Good.
How did you first get involved in playing music for meditation?
Well, the way that I got involved playing music for meditation was I was invited to be a musician at a retreat that was given by Lynn Andrews. Lynn Andrews actually lives there in Arizona, in Scottsdale, and is the author of many, many books on shamanism. And for 25 years running, we would have a retreat in the desert at Joshua Tree, and several hundred people would be there. And the method of teaching that she had was by journeying. So people would lie down and they would get in state, and the music would be designed to help them get into the meditative state. And then she would tell the stories, which were teaching stories. So it was very important to have the proper atmosphere to frame the story and kind of create an experience that's out of the ordinary and sacred. So as I did this every summer for 25 years, so every year I would hone in a little more. How can this be more effective? It's not just playing music. It's creating the atmosphere, and it's also supporting the ideas that are being expressed as well. So it's deep and also prolonged. We would do this for 4 days running. And there would be maybe 4 hours of this kind of storytelling, relaxing meditation, teaching per day. So every year I would get a little deeper into it, and I would expand my ideas of it. And it also brought me into uh, studying the science behind music. So I noticed that this is called Science and Soul, and the music that I was doing there also was informed by science. The more that I did it, I started off just playing C minor chord and F minor chord and so on. But then I was going, okay, why would I choose that, right? And
Right.
what about the movement of the music? Is that what can I do to make that more effective? And I had the subjects right in front of me, right? I could
Hmm.
tell when they got deeper in, were more relaxed, and was following their physical cues as well. And then over the years, I would do more studying, read lots of books on the subject, listen to a lot of other music on the subject, and start to build a philosophy of composing around my experiences.
Wow. Wow, what a journey and how you
Yeah.
get, yeah, and how you get into it.
Hmm.
Um, so I know you've been composing music for meditation for many years.
Yeah.
How does meditation music differ from other instrumental music?
Hmm. Well, as I just alluded to a minute ago, I was talking about the pacing of the music. And physiologically, you breathe differently when you're meditating. It slows down, it becomes measured. It also it goes from one state to another state. And there's music that I've composed that keeps that in mind as well. In other words, I did some research, found out what the normal heartbeat would be, and then what the heartbeat is in a deep meditation. So I decided to compose some music that started off with that as kind of a entry,
Hmm.
because I think we've all had the experience of hearing a piece of music that's too damn fast, right?
Right.
And you can't relate to it, it makes you nervous, right? Or music that's so slow, you go, God, you know, kill me now.
Right.
It's like so slow. So I
Yeah.
endeavored to get the pulse that was comfortable for most people as they're
Hmm.
having a regular day, and then start slowing it down a little bit, and experimented with how much is good, how much is too much. So the pacing of the music is very important, and also there's the idea of suspense and tension in music, and music with absolutely no tension is like a C chord held, right? So you
Hmm.
can't have that. It has to have some movement in it, but the movement itself is suggestive of gracefulness,
Uh-huh.
of growth, of resolution, um, and if there's too much of an edge to it, or you create too much tension in the music, then the listener picks up the tension.
Hmm.
So uh, in some ways it's an intuitive thing, is not to go too far out on the ledge, uh, however, to open it up and have it be expansive
Hmm.
and ever changing. The way if you might meditate on a rose or a flower, the flower doesn't always look exactly the same after you've been staring at it for 30 minutes or so. And I have meditated on a rose
Right.
or a candle, right?
Uh-huh.
It's always changing, but
Hmm.
it's changing in this beautiful, restful way. So I think that I feel like I am a channeler of music,
Hmm.
and I was originally attracted to the music of India as a boy.
Hmm.
From about 13, I started listening to Indian music, Ravi Shankar especially, and I wrote my high school term paper on it.
Uh-huh.
And is something about the music, and that music is based on a tone, on a drone, and its embellishments on it, rhythmically, harmonically, its melody and its drone. And it's not like Western music where the chords are changing all the time.
Mm.
So I was very interested in this and hypnotized by it and fascinated by it,
Uh-huh.
and that's grown into all things Indian, I
Right.
love Indian culture,
Uh-huh.
especially Indian music, and I continue to listen and study it
Uh-huh.
and make my interpretation of it as an influence. You
Mm-hmm.
know, of course, I played all kinds of music, and I've been a professional musician since 16.
Right.
Right, played
Mm-hmm.
for a living
Right.
for all those years, many
Yeah.
years.
You're right.
So, so anyway, I have lots of things that I know how to play, but
Uh-huh.
I focus in on this and to establish the proper atmosphere to help people meditate. In my experiences, meditation is not that easy. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that easy. You know, the monkey mind takes over and the rough chatter, and it's very challenging to stay with it. So my challenge and idea has always been to support the meditation, not to draw all this attention to what I'm doing, but more like to draw the person inward. And that
Mm-hmm.
actually is the same that is the same goal of Indian music,
Mm-hmm.
especially the beginning introspective, quiet, non-rhythmical introductions to a classic Indian raga.
Mm-hmm.
It's spiritual music. Indian music, Indian
Yeah.
classical music is spiritual music, and that is the purpose of that music. And so that's been one of the guiding lights in what I like to compose.
Oh, wow. What an influence that had, on your life.
It did.
So now when you're composing, what instruments do you use in your composing?
Yes. Um, I tend to, my technique is to get into state, and by state I mean a meditative state. Um, get very, very quiet, and when the mood comes over me, then I indulge it, whether it's 3 in the morning or whether it's 11 o'clock in the morning, what have you. If I'm feeling it, then I will sit down and I will play. And mostly it is going to be at the piano. And the piano has the largest selection of tones from the top to the bottom. And I will sit and I will play. And sometimes I'll play for 40 minutes on a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to activate music to come through me
Mm-hmm.
rather than to think it out or count it out. It's it's I close my eyes or I half open them, which I
Mm-hmm.
think some psychics do, where they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for things that are not that are in the peripheral vision. I
Mm-hmm.
notice I do this too. When I'm in that state, I'm aware of things in my peripheral vision, but I'm in the music and my hands are playing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sort of there and I'm sort of not, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like and then I listen to all back, and I decide what's moving me, what feels authentic,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll just edit it a lot.
All right.
Right? I say, okay, this
Yeah.
part, this part's genuine. This is the real
Yeah.
stuff right here. This is not self-conscious.
Uh-huh.
This is in the flow, right? This
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel calm and good
Mm-hmm.
as I'm listening to it, right?
Right.
And and then I will take those parts
Mm-hmm.
and leave the rest. And then after that, then I will embellish it with my other
Mm-hmm.
instruments, and whether it's percussion or whether
Mm-hmm.
it's guitars or synthesizers, samples. The truth is, there's never been more sounds available to a composer in the history of the world. And anything that I like, I can bring in. So I bring in the
Right.
sound of tablas and tamburas sometimes,
Uh-huh.
flutes. I can play a lot of
Mm-hmm.
instruments. So sometimes the human voice, even breathing, I'll bring in there,
Mm-hmm.
and anything that supports the musical idea.
Wow. It's a lot, that goes into making music like that,
Hmm.
the normal person doesn't think about what that creative process looks like for the musician. So it's
Hmm.
just fascinating. I know that on your site, you write about resonant frequency and that
Hmm.
each person has their unique tone. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate on that?
Yes, I can elaborate on that. I sure can. Well, this is an interesting thing because this reminds me of the science and soul thing because I have I have read other people are saying, well, everybody has this note, it's their note, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what's the proof that this is your note, your this note or that note? But what this is based on is how somebody speaks, their conversation, their singing voice, the physiology of their body, okay, their vocal box, how they sound, right? So I've done a lot of recording of voiceovers, edited books on tape, worked with singers. All singers have a key they like. All singers have a key they like. They resonate with it. And I'm going, well, I wonder if normal people have this as well. So I recorded a a lot of voiceovers, various speakers, and then I put it on the computer. And on the computer, you can ascertain what the tone, the frequency tone, i.e., the note of a conversation is. Now, when somebody is talking, they are intoning all different notes. And if you took any one of my notes that I'm talking, let's say I went, well, it would be bing, bing, bing. It would be, well, I go, well, I'm not really sure. Or, oh, yeah, that's a note. Everybody's singing all the time.
Right.
Everybody is singing all the time. Only these notes, they're staccato. They're staccato notes as you talk like this. And if you draw them out, you can see that they're tones. But on the computer program, it put it all on a staff. So you could see what those notes are. And what happens is a pattern emerges. There's a tone, and the average person will have 2 or 3 tones above and 2 or 3 tones below, and will keep hitting that center tone over and over and over. And the average person speaks about 40,000 words a day. So just think of how many times you're intoning that one note over and over and over again. And so I'm thinking, if that's true, then perhaps it explains why some people like the sound of somebody's voice and some people don't like the sound of somebody's voice because maybe they're not consonant. So I decided to make a bunch of tests on that. And I found out that if somebody is intoning the C note most often, let's say, in their conversation over and over again, perhaps a non-consonant interval like an F sharp, which boom, dum, boom, dum, is a very, it's called the devil's interval, actually. It used to be against the law to use it in music in the Middle Ages.
I read about that somewhere. Yes.
Yeah, it's against the
Yes.
law. Against the law. That cracks me up. But anyway, not consonant.
Hmm.
So I did some tests on some people, and I found that it's really true that if somebody is intoning a non-consonant tone, people tend to not like it. And so I did these tests, and I did one with Elizabeth that was interesting, where I composed a piece of music in C, and then she is a C.
Uh-huh.
So I composed the music in C, and then I took the exact same music and I played it in F sharp. And I gave her the 2 recordings. I said, honey, I just recorded these 2 pieces. What do you think? And she comes back and she goes, I love your music, but and I love that first piece. That was great. But the second piece, I just didn't like it. I go, what? It's the same piece of music
Wow.
in two keys.
Uh-huh.
So at the same Joshua Tree retreat that I mentioned to you, I began testing people for their tone, and I tested over several years, maybe 500 different people as to what their consonant tone was. And some really interesting things popped up. The first thing was husbands and wives were, in my experience, all consonant tones. Typically, if you were a C, if you know music, it's the
Yeah.
perfect fifth.
Hmm.
It would be a C and a G,
Yeah.
or a C and an E,
Hmm.
and sometimes a C and an A, which is really the same like C major scale, right?
Yeah.
So they're consonant. Mothers and daughters, I found this was true, right? And
Interesting.
yeah, and other than that, they were all over the map. So I did an experiment where I created a piece of music, actually a CD, in
Hmm.
every single key, half step, C sharp, D sharp, all the way up the scale.
Right.
And I offered it to these people that I was doing these readings for. And people had amazing success with this music that was all written in their key.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's the resonant frequency idea. So I
So we
think
basically resonate with our own frequency resonates with the tones of the music. So
that's right.
right?
That's right. That tone that you're used to hearing
Hmm.
resonate in your own skull as you talk, uh, and if the music is in that key, it feels really good. If it's out of key, I often wondered why do people like certain kinds of music and they can't stand other kinds of music, and
Hmm.
that's still an ongoing thing for me. But I think one of the hints is that, and the other thing I think is your aspiration, your breath, how you breathe, right? How fast you breathe. I think it has a lot to do with the kind of music you like and the kind of rhythm that feels good to your body, right? If it's too
Hmm.
fast, it's just wrong, right?
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
it's like some thrash rock or, punk rock and for 17-year-olds, it's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And the adults go, ah. And so there's a really nice groove in there that we all have. And if we find it, then we like that music. If the key fits, feels good to us, this we don't really, in my opinion, no one knows, right?
Yeah.
No one knows. But anyway, that was one of my experiments with meditation music, and I found it works really well. Of course, you have to give a special meditation to each person, so I have to be more generalized with that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when you have been recording, have you
Hmm.
made any interesting discoveries while you were composing music for higher consciousness?
Absolutely. So that was one of them, of course. But
Hmm.
another one is this thing that is okay. I wrote an ebook, and the ebook is called Meditation Music and the Phantom Note. Now, the phantom note is the note that you hear when you have two notes that are close together, and you hear one here and you hear one there, and you hear a third one as the combination of the two.
So
Now,
it's like the phantom note is when you have like two tuning forks and
yes,
one is C and one is G, and then your head hears those two notes, but it makes a third one inside your head.
yes,
Is that
which
the
is
phantom note?
yes, that's the same
Okay.
idea. Only the tuning forks in this case are going to be like C and C sharp. They're going to be really
Hmm.
close to each other, and they beat. So
Hmm.
this is Robert Monroe was somebody who discovered this and made a whole study out of it. Robert Monroe was the guy who I think he coined the out of body experience uh, phrase. But anyway, he did a lot of experimenting with these two tones, and people with headphones would listen to them, and they would be tuned slightly differently, and he would create a beating. And the beating was right at the frequency of the brain, the human brain.
Hmm.
So what would happen is people would get profound experiences from listening to these two tones. So he called it hemisync.
Hmm.
And the thing is that I discovered is this is universal. And it's universal in spiritual and ceremonial music going all the way back to pre-Columbian times, South America. I did a study to find all these instruments that are creating this, and what it is tones that are almost the same, but they're just slightly different and create this brainwave frequency beating from one side to the other side. And when I went to Bali some years
Mm-hmm.
ago, they have this thing called the gamelan orchestra, and they have the ecstatic dancers in the center, usually the young girls. And the deal is they play this music, this hypnotic, repetitious music,
Mm-hmm.
and the dancers dance, and then they fall over in ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read that in the gamelan instrument, there's two of everything. Every instrument is doubled, and it's in a circle, and instrument, a particular kind of drum is over here. The same drum is over here on the other side of the circle,
Mm-hmm.
and every instrument is doubled around the circle. And they are specifically detuned to this brainwave frequency, so it creates this beating as they play together.
Wow.
So it goes whoa, 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 whoa. That's as close as the sound I can make.
Yeah.
Of course, it's subharmonic. It's very low.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
Mm-hmm.
hear it. You can't
Yeah.
hear that without headphones. You
Yeah.
can't. You simply can't hear it. It's too low. But
Right.
it's affecting you, and it's creating this amazing atmosphere where the dancer is dancing, where all these notes are floating into each other. So doing research, I found out that in South America, pre-Columbian South America, they have a whistle,
Mm-hmm.
and a ceremonial whistle. They made millions of these little clay whistles in South America, 1100, 1400. They got two shrill whistles, slightly detuned.
Mm-hmm.
And when you play one of these, and I played one of these, it feels like it's just rushing through your head. So
Wow.
you were having this amazing experience just by hearing this whistle or by
Wow.
hearing the gamelan orchestra.
Uh-huh.
The next example is with a choir, any chanting, people coming together, people all singing the same thing at the same time creates the same effect because everybody's voice is just a little out of tune with everybody else's. They're trying to sing the same note, but of course they're off. This is creating the same thing. So you have Gregorian chants, and that particular, I mean, what is it about those?
Right.
I mean, that's part of it, right? They're in
Uh-huh.
this echoey space. They are singing the same melody ostensibly, but what's happening is it's got this big, spacious, swirling sound
Mm.
that people are responding to. Same goes with Indian music. They have on this instrument called the tambura. It creates the drone,
Mm-hmm.
and every classical Indian concert has got two tambura players, one on either side of the stage, because when they play together, that atmosphere starts to happen, right? And you get
Mm-hmm.
that beating happening. So the performers in the center, the singer or the sitar player or what have you, is feeling that vibration. It's all very intentional, right?
Wow.
So that's what I call the phantom note. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing with a pipe organ, it does the same thing. And really, any instrument that's got two notes that are tuned the same create this effect. The hammered dulcimer
Mm-hmm.
is I took that up, even though it's like crazy hard to play.
Right.
It's really hard to play, but it's got two strings tuned to the exact same frequency. So when you hit it, you've got that sound. That's why it's got this ephemeral kind of
Mm.
quality to it, right? So so all singers, choir members, I think they'll all say, there's nothing quite like the experience of being in a big choir and singing with everybody. And that's part of what's going on with that big spatial sound based on the fact that people are not singing exactly in tune. If you're exactly in tune, it
Uh-huh.
sounds very small. It sounds
Uh-huh.
very small. So uh, it's very satisfying with many voices almost together with that.
Right. That's
Yeah,
so interesting. Things I would
yeah,
never think about.
yeah.
Right.
I definitely use this in everything that I do. A lot of it is based on a drone, and I will carefully put it in. I try not to overdo it. I think
Uh-huh.
I composed a meditation where I definitely overdid this thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you how I knew. Okay, so I was in my studio
Uh-huh.
and I said, okay, I'm going to start off with a tone and I'm slowly going to detune one till it gets to that brainwave frequency, starting off as one tone and it's going left to right. And then I'm going to slow it down the rhythm using a drum, slow down that rhythm to deep meditation heartbeat. So I worked on that and I made that happen, and I'm working on it. Then I get a call from Elizabeth. She says, "Come in, there's dinner." And I go, "Great." So I leave the studio, I come in, I sit down for dinner, I look at the plate, and I go, "Wow, this looks really good." And she says to me, "There's no food on your plate." It's hallucinated this dinner. I'm going, "Okay, I think this might be a little far with this. I have to roll it back a little, in case anybody wants to drive a car while they're listening."
Right, right. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, that's overdoing it a little bit. But my work is informed by that. And, it's people, musicians have been doing it subconsciously just because they like the sound. They don't know why. But that is definitely part of the science, is how it gets consonant with the brain wave,
Hmm.
with the brain wave.
Yeah, it's
There's,
fascinating. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. There's one more thing about this,
yeah.
and this is kind of an obscure story, I suppose. But what they found was when they first had first started putting astronauts out into orbit, they found that the astronauts would come back and they would feel sick, and they couldn't figure out why. And they did a lot of tests and so on, and they found out that this particular frequency of being on the earth, um, which also is close to, but not the same, as brainwave frequency. This was something that it's an electromagnetic uh, vibration, very subtle, that comes from the earth. And they found that when people left the earth and they were in orbit and so on, they came back and got sick. So to make up for this, they put a little machine in to these space capsules that was creating this vibration, and it solved the problem. Very obscure little story there,
Yeah,
but I think that's interesting. It's
yeah,
like that's part of why we love to walk on the earth with our bare feet, I think, and
yeah,
get grounded. If you're just flying around in the air, it can take its toll. So that's one way they
yeah.
make up for it with that frequency on board those spacecrafts.
Wow, that's fascinating. Things
Yeah,
you
thank
wouldn't
you.
think about, right? You
Hmm.
wonder how airplane personnel, flight attendants are affected that spend a lot of time up in the air. If
Hmm.
if they need
Yeah,
more of a certain frequency,
yeah.
because they're
Oh,
prone to have certain diseases and things because of that. So it's fascinating. It's like the new medicine is all frequencies and understanding the impact it has on our bodies.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
right. Well, I think it's all good because it's just getting deeper into our understanding, and they say the more that you learn, the more that you don't know.
right.
It's really true.
So true.
And there's so many mysteries about music, and I've often wondered why does this work and why does that work, and you play a song and people are weeping, and playing other songs, and
You're right. Yeah.
there's I used to play a lot of rock and roll. I
Hmm.
was a rock and roll guy, so sometimes you play a song and heads are bobbing. And I
Right.
remember playing a particular song one time. It was a really good song. It had a rhythm, and it's like nobody could vibe with the rhythm. It's like, all the dancers left the floor,
Right.
kind of sat around, wait for the next song.
Right.
Okay, what's wrong with this rhythm? No one can dance to this. And it's true that in pop music, and I've done this
Hmm.
research because I was curious, was there are certain rhythms, uh, the hit songs, they're all clustered around the same rhythms, like 110,
Yeah.
120 beats a minute, and then it skips and goes up to maybe 140. And they're not all equally all over the place. They're
Hmm.
like little clusters where all
Right.
the songs land. And the musicians, I know they just do it because it feels good.
Hmm.
The dancers dance because that feels good, and people like the songs because it feels good. The
Right.
question is why. But I think part of the reason is we walk at a tempo,
Hmm.
our hearts beat at a tempo,
Hmm.
we breathe at a tempo. So they're built-in consonances or templates
Yeah.
for listening to music that we like because we exhibit them in our body. So I'm still hunting for those. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely fascinating. I
Mm,
know on your website there is a section talking about chakra toning.
yeah.
What is that?
Well, I was talking to Elizabeth earlier about how deep Indian culture is, and when I studied it in high school, and there would be a scale. Say it's the Raga Bhairav. Um, they often have male and female versions of the same scale. The raga is a scale. Sometimes it's one bunch of notes going up and a different bunch coming down sometimes, but it's a musical scale. And and I learned about these certain ragas, and they go, well, in this raga, you've got the goddess who's reclining on a sofa with sniffing a lotus blossom, and then the god comes on his water buffalo, waving a bow and arrow, and this is just for a scale. And they all had one. I go, damn, this is deep. Well, the same goes for the chakra system, and Ayurvedic medicine and chakras are for understanding the body. They're for yoga. But interestingly to me, they have a color, right? They
Hmm.
have a they have a musical tone. They have a musical tone. So there's seven tones in it. Not everybody agrees on what the tones are, but it's more or less a scale from C. Usually, that's usually what people say. So a lot of people have experimented with healing music with certain chakra tones. And there's also sacred syllables that go with different sacred syllables for every chakra. So it's got the color, it's got the syllable, and it's got the place in the body. And this has worked for centuries. This is ancient teaching, but the note is there as well. So I've done a lot of experimenting or helping people who are healers experiment with chakra tones. And they say, okay, well, we're going to work with somebody who has a throat problem. So, the maybe would be A natural, would be for the throat. And then there's the crown chakra would be the C, and maybe third eye would be B natural, perhaps. So I provided on the website prolonged um, uh, pieces for every chakra that featured the sacred syllable being intoned over and over and over and over again by different voices, just cascading over each other to create that atmosphere of the sacred tone, and made it so as beautiful as I could also, but mostly all based on the tone of the chakra. So that's available for people who are doing that, and there's a bunch of people who do work with that. So
Right. And is that at which website?
uh, my latest project, which you know about, God bless you, is
Hmm.
um, music meditation music central. So this was uh, this was built to be able to support people who are creating podcasts, who are creating videos, who are teaching classes, and I decided to make this available and affordable. And I've done a lot of this in the past, supporting teachings, religious ceremonies with meditation music. And so that is part of it. All these meditations are available, and royalty free means that you pay a fee and then you can use the music for any purpose that you like without having to pay royalties on it, which is a pain. But it is the law, and if somebody is composing some music, then um, it's important that they get honored as well. So I just decided to make it very affordable and be able to help people. And I'm excited by the international kind of response that I got from it. It's very happy for me to be able to send some music off to Australia or Hungary or UK and some exotic places. So getting around the world, and I'm composing
Yeah.
music all the time to keep everything rolling. and it's music for yoga too, and healing, and but intentionally for healing, spiritual ceremony, and higher consciousness. That's my idea about it.
Yeah, his music is just beautiful. So I use his music in when I do teachings, because it's a problem with royalties. And if
Hmm.
you're in a teaching setting, or where you would have to pay royalties because you're using the music,
Hmm.
Jack has just great music on his website that you can go check out, and he has little samples. You can play the samples. But even if you're not using his music for teaching, it's still great meditation music,
Hmm.
um, all different types of music. So go check out his website. So we've talked a lot about meditation music. Do you still create other types of music?
Yes, I do, and I think it's kind of interesting that I started my career out as a performer in a rock band, one of the San Francisco rock bands, Mother Earth, uh, and then moved to Nashville and joined Earl Scruggs, the banjo player, and played the bluegrass music and country music, and worked as a studio session musician, and did that for years. Then moved to Los Angeles and continued to work that job, which is fun, and became a producer. So my particular interest turned to meditation, to yoga, New Thought spirituality, shamanism. And as I got interested in that, I would start meeting these people. And as I would meet these people, they would ask me to make music for them. So it turned out to be a niche thing for me, where I play for these teachers that I like, and spiritual music. And then we have a fantastic music team at a Unity Church, which is a New Thought church in Thousand Oaks, and create music for spirit. And there's still other things that I do, and sometimes play jazz out, or play some rock and blues gigs, but for fun. But mostly, I love how it wasn't an intention of mine. It was just an attraction thing, where since I was interested in it, then people wanted to be accompanied by, or produced by, or to use the music of somebody that was of like spirit. So as I became who I am, then I found a lot of other people, probably like yourself. you know, like attracts like.
Right.
So that's kind of what happened there.
Wow. Well, it's been so much fun to have you as a guest on the podcast today. And your websites are jackleemusic.com and meditationmusiccentral.com.
Hmm.
And I will put those websites in the podcast notes as well. So you can just go to the podcast notes and click on it there. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the podcast and sharing all your knowledge about music and meditation today.
Thank you, Dr. Latte. It was a ball. I love talking to you. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Dr. Lottie Science with Soul. To stay up to date on future episodes and to help us reach a larger audience, remember to subscribe, review, and share this podcast. If you're a person who understands the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and would like to take one of my courses or work with me to create a path of healing your own life, please visit divinespiritualessence.com or drlottie.com. My book, Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality, is available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide.